so good to be back again.
What's up, you guys, and welcome back to another School Psych Sunday. It's your girl, Brandy, Be the School Psych, and we're back today with another question and answer video. I'm going to answer some more of your questions. So if you're new here, go on and do your girl a favor and subscribe. And for those of you who are returning, thank you so much for coming back and watching my videos. Make sure you guys comment below because I love answering your questions. Let's get right into the question. The first question comes from She Loves Lux. It says, hi, what test are you trying to do and what assessment test do you most commonly give at the elementary and middle school levels? How long does each testing sessions go when you pull a student from their class? How many times do you need to pull a student to finish an assessment, to finish an evaluation? When, in what situation do you refer the parents to an outside provider for testing? Future school psychology student, she says, future school psychology student asking. Thanks in advance. Thank you, She Loves Lux. That is an excellent question. Thank you for asking. Let's look at the first part of the question. What test are you trying to do and what assessments do you commonly give at the elementary and middle school levels? When I was in school, I was trained on the cognitive assessment called the WISC. And I want to say it was the WISC 3. And it stands for Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. So it's an IQ test that looks at a student's cognition. I also was trained, and with that being said, as I mentioned before, in California, we're not able to give IQ assessments to African American students. And in a previous video, I mentioned the Larry P. versus Riles case. So if you look up Larry P., you'll find out why we cannot give IQ tests to an African American student. It's considered biased. I'm not sure if it's still biased, but the law still stands as of now. So in that case, I replaced my cognitive assessments with, we were trying to give alternative assessments to look at cognition. And one of the assessments that I give is a memory and learning assessment, which is the RAMO 2 that I showed you guys in a previous video. So I was trained on that as well. The achievement test that looks at a student's academic achievement and to see what their present levels of academic functioning is. And I was trained on the Woodcock-Johnson Test of Achievement 3. So that was the assessment that I was trained on for achievement. I was also trained on processing, psychological processing assessments, which include the TAPS, which is the test of auditory processing skills. I was also trained on the test of visual perceptual skills. I also was trained for the Berry visual motor integration, motor coordination. Those are some of the assessments we use to look at a learning disability. I was also trained, if I can recall correctly, on in the social emotional area is the behavior assessment system for children. I want to say, so it's the BASC. I was trained on that. I think it was the BASC, actually, the BASC 2. And that is the social emotional assessment that I was trained on. So behavior assessment system for children. Sounds about right. And if I can recall correctly, I also was trained with autism rating scale. I want to say it was the GARS, the Gilliam autism rating scale, but I was also trained to be able to give us, if I get a new assessment, I was trained to be able to, read the manual and figure out how to give that particular assessment to a student. And of course, it has to be within my realm of practice. But for the most part, if I get a new assessment kit from my school, I will, train myself and read through the manual and learn how to give the assessment. Most of these assessments, and actually, I do not give the whisk at all. I do not give the whisk at all now. Do not give the whisk. That's an IQ test. I do not give it. My go-to assessment for cognition is called the DAS 2, second edition. It's the differential ability scales. So this measures a student's verbal ability. It measures their nonverbal reasoning ability. It measures their spatial ability. And those three composites give us an overall, it's called general conceptual ability score. And it's so the student can perform, low in one area and have a strength in another. So those three abilities, if a student scores low in one, we can use, and they score high in another, we can use that to establish their cognitive ability. Because that might be their area of strength, and the other area may be their, area of weakness. Typically, I will see students will have a low verbal ability, especially if they're English language learners, and then their nonverbal reasoning will be much higher because there's no language involved. So basically, language is removed, and we're just looking at their nonverbal reasoning, where they're able to look at like different pictures, designs, to use their reasoning skills. And most of the time, their spatial ability is higher too than their verbal ability. So that's the reason why I love that test, because it actually measures multiple things. You can use processing within that test as well. So that's a perfect assessment to give, and I absolutely love it. So those are the tools that I use with my elementary and middle school. So I use the DAS. Sometimes I use the Cognitive Assessment System, the CAS. I use the RAML 2. Those are cognitive. So I don't give the achievement test. The special ed teacher gives it, and they either use the Woodcock-Johnson or the KTEA, which is also another achievement test. I give the processing. I use the TAPS. I use the TVPS. I use the Beery. I also use the CTOP, which looks at like phonemic awareness, to see if there's anything going on with their phonological processing that impairs their ability to learn. Impairs their ability to read. And also the CTOP also has a rapid symbolic naming, which also looks at processing speed. It looks at expression. It also looks at association under the cognitive abilities. So those are the assessments that I give. All of those tests are school age appropriate. So they range from like 5 to 17, 11 months, most of them. And some of them go beyond 17 years and 11 months. You can use them at the elementary level as well as the secondary level. Portion of your question asks, how long does each testing session go when you pull a student from the class? Okay, so I don't let the students go longer than an hour because they get antsy, they're ready to go. And once they start getting antsy and like asking me how much longer and looking and flipping through the pages like, do I have to do all this? And I'm like, okay, it's time to go. So I don't like to keep them no more than an hour, usually 45 minutes to an hour. Some students can test longer than others. And I typically pull them 2 to 3 times a session. I pull them 2 to 3 times within that whole assessment. Students can do better than others. When students perform poorly, it usually goes by quicker. But when students have a high ability, they tend to go further in the test. Okay, so 1 hour sessions, 2 to 3 times I pull them, but it all depends on the students. So I'm going to include observations in that. So with an initial assessment, I try to do observations across multiple settings, especially if the referral was based on behavior. So I'll do like in the classroom, in the cafeteria, and playground. So structured times and unstructured times. And let's see. So it just depends on the student how many observations I will do. Okay. Let's see. Then you also ask, in what situation do you refer the parents to an outside provider for testing? In no situations do I refer a parent to an outside provider. Just a rule of thumb, if we refer a parent to an outside provider, the district will have to pay. Okay. So I would like to think that as a professional, that I've done a comprehensive assessment and that I've touched on all the areas of concern. I went in depth and addressed everything, and we were able to meet the students' needs based on the assessment and based on the services that we're offering. So I never recommend an outside assessment. The parent does have the right to request an outside evaluation, an independent evaluation, if they do not agree with the findings of the psychologist. And if they disagree and we can't come to some type of, agreement, the district would have to pay for an outside evaluation. And those can be fairly expensive. I think they range between $5,000 to $10,000 per assessment. So no, I do not ever refer, but I do a comprehensive assessment, and I've had parents request for an outside evaluation. Now I have had that. Even if I had the best report, they still come in with their mind made up, like, I'm not going to hear what this person has to say. I'm not going to I'm not going to take in what she has to say. They came in with, I don't want to be negative, but they already came in, with a mindset like, I'm not going to agree. I want an independent evaluation for whatever reason. And they do have that right. The district has the right to agree with the outside assessment, or they have the right to disagree with the assessment. So just because you get a parent gets an outside evaluation doesn't necessarily mean that the district has to take that evaluation and go with, what that provider has said or that assessor has said. Thank you. She Loves Lux. Thank you so much for the question. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'm going to get to all of these questions. I promise you guys, I'm going to get to all of them. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, and drop those questions, you guys. And just to let you guys know, I'm going to be doing some in-depth videos on the entire assessment process, what a report looks like. I'm going to go through each page so you can see exactly what a school psychologist does and what they have to write. And you can really get a clear picture of the assessment process. So I'm going to do an in-depth video on the entire assessment process, also with the IEP. Even though I don't write IEPs, some districts require their school psychologists to write the IEP. So it just depends. So I want to show you guys all of that. Okay. So Thank you again for watching. I'll be back next Sunday with another school psych video. See you guys in the next video. Bye.